The other day we introduced the idea of Muktzeh. We explained at least 4 reasons from the Rishonim why the Chachamim instituted such an idea of Muktzeh on Shabbat. Now today, very short, very brief, we'll explain the overview of the different categories of Muktzeh, and then we'll go into these categories one by one later on. So first and foremost, there are at least, let's say, 7-8 categories of Muktzeh. We'll go through them individually right now. The first and most classic example is Kli shemelachto le'isur. Some sort of utensil, like keli, that its primary use is an isur, something that's forbidden on Shabbat. So what are examples? The classic examples are a hammer, a different type of wrench, nails, things like that. A hammer, it's a kli, it's a utensil. What do you use with it? Use it to build, use it to hammer in nails. So that's a classic example of something that's muktzeh because its primary use is for a davar asur, something that's prohibited on Shabbat. The next example, the next category of muktzeh would be muktzeh mechaman cheson kis. Muktzeh because it's very valuable and we're sensitive not to use it for no reason. So what's an example of an item that's muktzeh because of its value? The classic example is a sakin shachita or a sakin milah. Anyone who knows a shochet or anyone who's been around a shachita, a slaughterhouse, the Jewish knife is very valuable. We don't use the knife that we use to slaughter animals in a kosher way to use it as the same knife we use to butcher the meat. That knife needs to be very clean, without any nicks, very smooth, very sharp. We don't use that. We only use it for shechita. We're very sensitive that it doesn't touch anything. God forbid it's a nick, and it takes many hours to repair those nicks. So that's an example of mechamat cheson kis. The third example would be muktzeh mechamat gufo, an item that's muktzeh because inherently it has no purpose, it has no value. Mechamat gufo, because of itself. An example of that, like rocks. Some want to say sometimes like coins. Not such expensive coins, but that's an example of muktzeh mechamat gufo. Fourth category, basis davar asur. So this is interesting because the item itself isn't muktzeh, but it becomes a basis. It's like a base. It's like a stand for something that has an asur item on it. So what's the example of this? A magash she'alav nerot haShabbat. Very often you see women, they light the Shabbat candles on a tray. That tray inherently is not a problem. I can use it to serve food. But because I had the Shabbat candles on it, that tray becomes muktzeh now also because it's holding up the Shabbat candles which are muktzeh. Number 5, very quick, muktzeh mechamat isur, kegon chalav shenechla b'Shabbat. So something that was an isur action done, so it's muktzeh until the end of Shabbat. Like for example, someone milks a cow on Shabbat, that milk is prohibited on Shabbat because they did an isur on Shabbat. Number 6, nolad, kegon betzah shenolad b'Shabbat, something that came to this world on Shabbat, like an egg. An egg wasn't here on Friday. The chicken laid the egg on Shabbat. That egg is muktzeh until the end of Shabbat. Number 7, muktzeh mechmat mitzvah. The 7th category is something that's muktzeh, set aside, or we don't use it because of a mitzvah, like sukkah, the schach of a sukkah, like lulav, like in theory shofar, potentially, maybe not, but things like that. Sukkah is the best example. The schach and its decorations we don't touch on Chag and Shabbat. And lastly, this is also it's a in parentheses, but kli shemelachto leheter, something that is permissible, forks and knives, but there's no tzorech at all. There's no use at it whatsoever. So we'll explain these categories in detail in the upcoming days. Baruch Hashem, amen ve'amen.